This is episode 27 of the Women Inspired Podcast. Welcome to the Women Inspired Podcast. I'm your host, April Seifert. There is nothing more powerful than a woman who is inspired to action, and that's my number one goal, to inspire you, my listeners, to take action in your lives. Each week, I get to interview some of the most inspiring women, and I'm bringing those interviews to you. Let's do it. Carpe Diem, seize the day. What do those words mean to you? I get into that very discussion with this week's guest. Jasmine Brett Stringer is the principal of JB Stringer LLC and founder of the internationally recognized lifestyle brand Carpe Diem with Jasmine. As a nationally recognized and sought-after lifestyle expert, Jasmine has been featured on a variety of media outlets. She's the lifestyle contributor for CBS-owned and operated television station WCCO-TV. However, her Southern belle charm is not limited to the screen. Jasmine empowers others to seize their life as a regular contributor for the Huffington Post and within her own weekly podcast and lifestyle blog entitled Carpe Diem with Jasmine. Jasmine's award-winning book, Seize Your Life: How to Carpe Diem Every Day, sparkles with enthusiasm and inspiration for life. It's a treasure chest of positive suggestions for seizing the power of each day of your life, according to New York Times bestselling author Caroline Myss. As a professional speaker, Jasmine leverages her experiences from working with Fortune 500 companies and some of the world's biggest brands to inspire and empower audiences to achieve their personal definition of success and seize their lives. Hi, everybody. I am so excited to welcome a new guest onto the podcast today. Everyone, please welcome Jasmine Stringer. Jasmine, welcome.
Hi, April. Thank you so much for having me on the Woman Inspired Podcast.
Woo! I'm so excited. Okay, so I'm going to get ahead of myself and I'm going to stop myself right there. Let's get to know you a little bit. Tell me a little bit about your background, who you are, all of that, so we feel like we know you a little bit more.
Yep. So my name is Jasmine Brett Stringer. I live in the Twin Cities. I am the author of a fabulous book that if you have not read, I would encourage you to read it, called Seize Your Life: How to Carpe Diem Every Day. I am the lifestyle contributor to WCCO-TV's Mid-Morning, and I'm a friend of the Jason Show if you live in the Twin Cities area. But more importantly, I live my life by two words, Carpe Diem, which is Latin for seize the day.
Yes.
And I am on a personal mission to inspire, empower, and encourage others to seize the day in their lives.
I wish I could high five you through my microphone. I love that so much. It's just so awesome, and it's so in line with so much of the stuff that I get really excited about. So I'm really pumped to dive into that. Can you just elaborate a little bit? So tell us a little bit about the website, book, movement that you are starting, or not even starting, working on.
Yeah, when people hear Carpe Diem or, seize the day or YOLO, whatever the phrase is that gets you jazzed, a lot of times they think they've got to do something really grand or really adventurous or something very expensive. But seizing the day is really about the action you take to accomplish what you, as an individual, what you want for your life. So how do you, as an individual, strive and reach your goals, your big picture, your 30,000-foot vision for your life?
That's so awesome. How did you get started in this area? Did you have a normal job and something inspired you, or what's the background there?
Carpe Diem has been a part of my life since I was in high school. I had a normal job that I lost. I was actually laid off. I used to work for a big company here in the Twin Cities, and I started consulting. I didn't get a job right away, and I started consulting. And you hear a lot of things about purpose and passion and dreams. And like I said, Carpe Diem has been a part of my life since I was in high school. So, I took some time to think about how could I make a business out of this, and not only how could I make a business out of this, but more importantly, how could I get other people to start seizing the day and seizing their lives?
I love it. Oh my God. I love that so much. So how does that take shape? So you got inspired to do this. You moved into sort of an entrepreneurial type thing. How did that all start for you? Because I bet there are a number of people listening to this who are thinking like, wow, I'm, at the beginning of my own entrepreneurial journey, or even I'm still in a normal job and I would love to be doing more work that I'm really passionate about and that just I get really excited about, but how do I do that? So how did you do it?
It begins with action. It sounds very cliche, but it really begins with action. When I was laid off and trying to figure out, everyone was giving me the advice like, oh, get a new job and save your package. You want to save your severance, get a new job so you can get a double pay. But I really wasn't feeling a new job because I knew if I got a new job, I would be right back on feeling like I'm on that hamster wheel like I was feeling before. So I had to think about what it is that I wanted to do. And to tell you the truth, I really didn't have an idea at the time. I knew I didn't want to get a traditional 9 to 5, but I needed to make money. Hello, I've got a mortgage to pay, car note, all of those kind of things. So I call it dabbling. I started consulting, but really what it allowed me to do was use my, transferable skills and get paid by doing work. So I was doing business development, social media marketing, things that I was already doing in my professional job, but not in the traditional 9 to 5 set, to allow me to dabble, to have informational interviews with people, to have coffees, to really figure out how can I put a life together.
It's awesome. And I mean, maybe you noticed something similar to what I did when I left sort of a normal job, but as your life gets some, I guess breathing room or flexibility, or it becomes more dynamic and you realize, all right, my goals are not being fed to me anymore. They're my goals. And I have to decide, no goal is going to be in place unless I put it there, and nothing's going to happen unless I do it. At the beginning, that really freaked me out. But then something happened to my brain and it changed. And I realized, oh my God, I can do anything with my day today. I can experiment suddenly. Did you find that happen to you?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what dabbling is about. This is about experimenting. But yet you do have accountability because you've got to make money, because we live in a society where currency, money is the currency that we need to live. So you've got to figure out a way to make money, but you don't have to be beholden the way you are kind of with a traditional 9 to 5.
Totally agree. And something else that you touched on was something that I really relates to something that I read recently. I'm struggling to remember what book it was in. I have this bad habit of reading like 3 books at a time, and then they start to meld together. But it was talking about, you said you have to start with action. And I hear that so much where people think, okay, I have to be inspired. And then once I'm inspired, then I'll be motivated. And then once I'm motivated, then I'll take action. And that is actually a very cyclical relationship, and you can start at any one of those steps. So even if you're not...
Exactly. I like that. That's a new one for me, but I really do like that. Yeah. You don't need to be inspired. It's not an order. It's just important that you do something. It's like Nike. Just do it.
Totally. As long as you take that first step and you start with movement and you keep pushing that boulder, at some point, the inspiration and motivation is going to follow. Just do one thing. I just love what you said.
Yeah, one of my favorite books is The Alchemist, and there's that line that everybody knows from The Alchemist: when you really want something, all the universe conspires to make it happen. And I think that's what the action does, or the motivation, whatever activity you were doing, is you saying, hey, universe, I want this, I'm going after it. And the universe is there to help us. I always ask people when I give my talks, are you willing to bet on yourself? And so
Yes.
many people aren't, and we're conditioned not to bet on ourselves. I just saw Wes Moore speak a couple weeks ago, and he had this great line: "We are not products of our environments, but we are product of external expectations." So what if we were to get rid of those external expectations and only have internal expectations? Would we be willing to bet on ourselves?
Totally. Oh my God. It's a total question of, you could frame it a number of ways, right? It could be expectations from somebody else, setting your goals, telling you what your task list is for the day, telling you how you're going to spend your time and what's important to you. Or it could be a set of expectations that are other people's opinions, judgments, thoughts that maybe, make you feel like you can't take action.
Right.
That's so awesome. I love it so much. So, all right. Let's dive a little bit more into what your day looks like these days. So you've obviously been doing this for a little while now, and you've got this movement going. What does your day look like now?
So no day is the same, which is I like that. Today I'm getting ready. I do my segments on Tuesday, getting ready for a segment tomorrow. I'm traveling this week. I'm giving a keynote on Wednesday. I'm going over the final logistics for that. I have a coach. I had a coaching call with my coach to work on a project that I'm working on. So every day is a little bit different. Tomorrow I'll do the segment. I'll be getting books. I'll, go over the keynote one more time. I'll be packing. So every day is a little different. It just depends on what's going on. I have a podcast. I've got to send out emails to schedule guests and things of that nature.
Nice. I love it. Very dynamic. That makes every day really fun. I can really relate to that. So as you think about the work that you're doing and how it's impacting people, what is some of the feedback that you've heard from people? So I can imagine people who have read your books, heard you speak, seen you online. What do you hear from your audience?
Well, if I were to break it down in the common themes, a lot of people are like, "Oh, that was the inspiration I needed to take action," or "That was very encouraging," or "The book." I always say the book is very practical guidance on how we can live a more connected, authentic, and mindful life. And they're like, "Yeah, it was stuff I knew, but I wasn't doing, so I appreciate the reminder." Or, "I knew it, but you phrased it in a certain way that gave me new perspective or new food for thought."
That's awesome. So as you talk to people, maybe at the beginning of their journey, or if you've had the chance to talk to people before they've benefited from some of your content, what's the biggest thing that you see people either doing or not doing that is leading them to, I guess, have some friction or inauthenticity or whatever you want to call it in their life?
Well, I think one of the huge things is that people can't seize what they don't know they want. So people don't have a vision for their lives. They can tell you what they don't want, but they don't know what they want. So if you don't know what you want, how can you go after it? I think not knowing knowing what you don't want can be very helpful. But at some point, you've got to say, "Yeah, I don't want a cup of orange juice, but I do want a glass of water." Or, "I know I don't want a traditional 9 to 5, but I do want to work. And I know that I need to make this amount of money, but I need a career that's going to afford me the flexibility to be home every night by 5 o'clock because I want to be an active parent." Or, "You know what, I don't need to be home every night and I want to see the world, so maybe I'll become a flight attendant." You've got to pull the trigger and get clear on what you want.
I love that so much. And sometimes that can be really hard because I think we're not used to really taking a critical eye and thinking about what it is we want. And I'll go so far as to say, I think as women, we aren't used to really thinking critically and thoughtfully about what it is exactly that we want and how are we going to craft our life to be more in alignment with that. I don't think it's super common that we do that.
No, we're not. And then, we're told that we're selfish if we do things for ourselves, or, we surrender to being a mommy, or we surrender to being a wife. But we are so much more than that. We can have these technicolor lives.
Oh my gosh. Amen. I mean, if you go to my website, it says life is short, break the rules. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like all of these little rules that you think you're supposed to follow, that
Oh,
it's
I hate
somebody
that.
else
I
telling
always
you.
tell people, I'm like, who said it's supposed to be that way?
Right.
Just because it works for you, it does not mean that it's going to work for me. What
Right.
works for April doesn't work for Jasmine. It might, but it might not. And it's okay. We need to be a little bit more comfortable in marching to our own beats. And I think that's one of the things that's kind of refreshing with, some of the younger millennials and Generation Z is that they're like, wait a minute, I saw that modeled and that is not what I want. And I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try it this way.
Totally. And one of the ways that I've found that I talk to people about how to identify those areas, if you start to notice yourself at any point in time, and I love that you made the point about it doesn't have to be anything big. It can be small things. If you notice yourself sort of white knuckling something and like there's a ton of friction there and you're just like, oh, I have to do this. That's really an indication that there could be a change there. Something as tiny as like, I saw a woman in the Skyway downtown not too long ago who was clearly having an extremely hard time walking in her extremely high-heeled shoes. And I'm thinking, are you white knuckling walking to work every single day? Like, man, where's some flats? It's really comfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
But tiny things.
To your point, yeah, we are. So maybe she works in an office where they wear heels, but like you said, there's nothing wrong with wearing flats. Or you know what? Why not take an Uber and get dropped off right at your door, so you're not having to walk through the Skyway in those heels if you have that, luxury.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, as you were getting this started, how did you something else that I found that is difficult for people is how to find your voice and how to find your message. How did you do that? Because you have a very clear message that's out there.
But I think I didn't have the clear message in the beginning. I think people fail to realize that we are always evolving. Like reinvention is the name of the game. So what might be the message today might not be the message tomorrow. I think the message will always be, on brand, on trend, true to who I am, but how you're saying it might change because people are always evolving. So I think you just have to start. I started with a blog. Like my original blog was called Thoughts from Jasmine. Then I rebranded it Carpe Diem with Jasmine. Then I realized that the writing was getting hard, this year. So as we were discussing, I launched the podcast. So it's really about finding what can be true to brand, true to message, authentic to you, and finding a way that works within the parameters that you have, the parameters of your life that work for you.
I like that. And have you ever, I guess, along the way, so along the way, have you ever just run into a massive roadblock where you felt like, man, I'm slogging through it right now. This is really difficult?
Yeah, I mean, I'm writing again. I want to work on another book. Like I said, I have this coach, so we're trying to get some things down. I'm writing every day, and I'm like, does that sound okay? Is this being conveyed the right way? And the lesson for me, because I feel like I'm going through this process right now, is persistence. I talk about the little train that could. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. So I think I can. I just got to hang in through there.
Absolutely. And do you ever get freaked out? I mean, the first time you wrote a book was the first time you've ever written a book. You hadn't written a book before. The first time you launched something massive is the first time. Do you ever get freaked out?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, whoa, is this me? I told you offline, like I'm one of those people where I kind of like jump in there and then I'm like, oh, I don't read the instructions beforehand. Some people are wired where they read the instructions beforehand. I don't do that. I kind of jump in and then I figure out as I'm going along, good or bad or indifferent. That's just how I'm wired. And sometimes, yeah, I'm like, oh my goodness, what was I thinking? And I don't know if it's fear or nerves. Sometimes I actually do have to give myself permission to sit with those feelings and that emotion of being overwhelmed, of being a little scared, but I can't allow myself to wallow there. Like, I can sit there for a minute, but then we got to get back in the game of life. That's what I would say. I got to get back in the game, you know?
Absolutely.
Are you in or are you out? Are you betting on yourself? And I'm betting on myself every single day.
I like that so much, betting on yourself. I like that so much because it's a neat way to frame uncertainty.
Yeah. I mean, you know, Sheryl Sandberg, you know, when she wrote Lean In, had the question, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And I could tell you a lot of things I would do. I would maybe jump out of an airplane because I don't really like heights. So maybe I would go skydiving. I would ride a roller coaster. But is that really like betting on myself? How is that really moving the dial? How is that going to allow me to seize the day and seize my life?
Totally. And something I like too is, so again, it helps you reframe that uncertainty and it helps you think about, all right, I don't actually have to have the entire path mapped out. I need to know about the first step or two. I mean, I probably should have some idea of how to start, but I'm going to figure it out along the way. And I have enough trust in myself that I know I can do that.
Exactly. I tell people that's one of the things that we have to do when we think about seizing our lives or seizing the vision, seizing anything, is that we've got to surrender. We've got to release the need to know how. We cannot be attached to a process. You know, you have your end goal, your vision, your outcome in mind, but in reality, it's probably going to surpass anything that you imagine. I love the quote that God will dream a bigger dream for you. But as long as you are going in that direction, you know, what's the other quote? Reach for the moon, because if you fall, you'll still be amongst the stars.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got to release that need to know every single detail.
Absolutely.
And I don't know why we're wired that way, where we're like, I got to know what's going to happen next. And if I do this, life is not a game of chess, you know?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I discussed this exact same thing in episode 11 with a woman named Jenny Evans. She's also an entrepreneur. She does a lot of speaking. She's the founder of Powerhouse Performance. And she said that
the same book publisher, Wise Inc.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. I love finding these connections. That's so cool. Yeah, she talks about being just a little bit naive and not really quite knowing, but starting anyway and kind of looking back like, oh God, what was I doing?
Exactly. I give a story. I said my 25-year-old self, I don't know. She was fearless. Maybe she was confident. Maybe she was naive, but she did a lot of things. And somewhere along the way, life happened and I started playing it safe. And I really had to figure out a way to start betting on myself and believing in myself and start seizing the day for me. And not seizing the day for my husband or seizing the day for my family or seizing the day for my friends, but what action is Jasmine going to take for Jasmine?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And not viewing it as selfish.
No.
Absolutely. Oh, that's so cool. So,
because you know what happens? So you start living, and I see this all the time, and you probably see this. You start living, you are only seizing, you're failing to look at your life as a person with so many different layers, spiritual, your relationships, but you start living for your children all the time. So your children turn 18 and they go to college. So what happens? Sure, you have empty nest syndrome, but you hit a low. But if you have been taking care of yourself, if you've been living for yourself along the way, you know what's the next thing to happen. And then also you've mirrored a healthy behavior and lifestyle for your children. Or,
100%.
People with kids, they only focus on their kids and then their kids go away and they're getting a divorce because they stopped trying to carpe diem in their marriage and they don't even know who they're married to. So what have you done? That's why you have to look at all of the aspects, all of the layers, all of the departments or compartments, whatever you want to say, that make you be a holistic person.
I totally agree. Yeah, I definitely see how so I have a child and I definitely see how that can be all consuming, but I also see how I, as an individual sane human being, become less of that in the weeks when I allow my calendar and external forces to 100% dictate my week. If there's not a few workouts in there, and so that's my thing, like everybody has their thing, you know, whatever your hobby is, but if there's not a few workouts in there, I'm just not as sane and as good of a person for my family, for my daughter at all. Like I need that for me.
Someone would say devil's, advocate, oh, I could never work out because my child is in daycare already and I don't want to put him in daycare at the gym. But, who's to say that's wrong?
Yeah. Well, and two, I mean, we had to get creative. So, that running stroller that we bought secondhand, was exactly because I can sit there and chit chat with her and I can get a good run in. And plus it's a lot harder when you're pushing a stroller. So you get even more workout. It's just doubly awesome. But
that's a perfect example of seizing the day, is that you said, for your sanity, you need to work out. So that's an action that you need to take. You found this running stroller, which some people would say, I don't have the money for the running stroller, but you found it secondhand and it still works and it's very nice. And you're able to run and get some quality time in with your child. And as she, gets older, she'll probably say, like at 4, I had memories of my mom pushing me, or my mom was a runner. My mom mirrored a healthy lifestyle for me through her running or being active.
Absolutely. I hope so. I really hope so. So you have this message that you're putting out there. Like I said, it's very clear and it's very crafted, and you've done an amazing job with your brand and just all the content that you're putting out there. Did you ever run into, we talked about expectations of other people. Did you ever run into any naysayers or people who were looking at you, and maybe it was internal to you, I don't know, saying, who are you to be telling people how to live? Who are you to be telling us, what we should be doing to live a full life? Did you ever encounter that?
People ask me, what experience do you have to give this guidance? And I said, I'm giving guidance from the life, the journey. And so I've taken it from there. And I do have confidence in my ability and confidence in my experience that it is worth sharing and that it is actually able to help somebody else make a positive change in their life.
Absolutely. Totally. So you've accomplished a lot. You've definitely got a lot under your belt. What's your next goal? You alluded to the podcast, to a book. What's your big goal?
Yep. So the big goal is I am right now, I can't believe, so soon, but I'm working on another book. I am working at becoming a better podcaster each and every week.
It's so hard.
I can talk to you about that. I am a newlywed, so, this whole new role of being a wife, which was a huge learning curve. I used to tell people, I'm just trying to get adjusted to this because not that it's not great, but it's an adjustment period. Totally. So just figuring out how to do those things, blend two complete adults together in our lives.
Absolutely. That's a lot. I mean, those are all very lofty goals. I would definitely agree with you there.
And that's why I say, step by step, day by day, because you can get overwhelmed when you look at the list and you're like, what? How in the world am I going to do all of this?
Yeah, absolutely. So what type of people, or maybe what person, individual person, who inspires you?
I'd have to say my number one inspiration is my mom. My mom, I talked about mirrored reinvention to me. She mirrored seizing the day. She still mirrors all of these things about seizing the day, seizing your life, being a person of strong character and there for your family and friends and having some fun along the way.
I like that a lot. Oh my gosh. So whenever I have somebody on who's got a lot of practical wisdom, or they've got a lot of experience in a particular area that can be applied in a, kind of hands-on way to my audience, I always like to sort of squeak a little bit of value out of them. So if you had advice or if you had action items or whatever it is for my audience, maybe a couple things that they can do in the coming week to help them seize the day, live a more authentic life, really put to use and put into action some of the things that you've been talking about, what's your advice or what are your action items for them?
Yeah, number one, I would say it begins with vision. So start small. Make a vision for the next couple weeks. So write out, this is what I want to happen in my life. This is what I'm going to work for the next couple weeks. Take action and start showing up and be present, because I think I'm guilty of this. We live in this society where we are always multitasking, but if you can actually fully engage in a conversation at work, fully engage in a meeting, don't look at your cell phone, don't respond to emails, don't respond to a text, but really at the dinner table, don't take the cell phone to the dinner table. Really start actively showing up. You'd be surprised. I mean, yesterday I was so proud of myself. I turned the phone off. I was like, I'm not even just going to leave the phone in my bag. I'm going to turn it off because whoever is calling is not that important. So I don't even want to hear the buzzing.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, we have to set those boundaries for who's allowed in and what, I guess, noise and filler we're going to allow into our days, because if you are going to be present, you have to block some of it out.
Yes.
Absolutely. This is awesome. So for people who want to come find you and find your work, where can they find you?
Yep, my website is simple. It's Carpe Diem with Jasmine, CarpeDiem with spelled out, Jasmine, Jasmine. I'm also Carpe Diem with Jasmine on Facebook. On Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram, I'm simply Carpe Diem JBS. Jasmine, J for Jasmine, B for Brett, S for Stringer.
Nice. And so as we wrap up today, I have to ask you for the same exact last question that I ask every single podcast episode or guest that I have on every episode. We are compiling a Spotify Power playlist of very motivational songs, and they're all curated by my amazing, amazing guests that I've had on the podcast. So I have to ask you for your favorite motivational song.
Oh, I don't know. I don't have a favorite, but I think what always gets me revved up is Journey, Don't Stop Believing. I mean, is that on the playlist already?
It is not. It's not on there yet.
Yay.
I like it. That's fantastic. This has been so great. I love your vision for the work that you're doing. And I love how, you can just hear it. You're so aspirational in the way that you talk about it. You can tell how much it means to you.
Oh, thank you, April. That means a lot. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me as a guest on Women Inspired.
Absolutely.
Thank you for using your voice to share the stories of women doing different things, because we can all be inspiration to each other.
I totally agree. There's so many of them out there. You have no idea. I see them everywhere now. Now that I'm looking for them, crazy, amazing, powerful, inspiring women everywhere.
When you really want something, all the universe conspires. So you are diligently working on this, and you're getting all of these stories of inspiration to share to the world.
Totally. The Alchemist. I love it. This has been so fantastic.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Don't you want to go out and do something amazing? I just love her. Oh my gosh, it was just so wonderful to meet her. But before we go this week, I have to touch on just a few things from that interview, because they were just really too amazing for me to just leave them and not talk about them a little bit. First of all, Jasmine hit on a theme that a number of my guests have mentioned, and I'm not going to remember everybody. I know Ashley Smith mentioned the same theme in her episode. Jenny Evans mentioned it in her episode, and countless other guests. If there is a goal that you want to meet, or there is an activity or something that you want to do, just do it. Don't sit around and consider it for too long or overthink it. Just do it. And that actually bleeds into the second thing that I wanted to highlight from her interview. Take action. Do it first. Don't worry so much about being able to do every single step along the way. All you have to know is how to do the first couple. And I think you should bet on yourself. And actually, I'm willing to bet on you that you're going to be able to figure out what those next steps are. We are resourceful people. We can figure it out. And now I'll admit, I sort of have the same leaning to myself that Jasmine has with hers. You know, she mentioned she just rushes out and starts working on something without really reading the directions. I kind of do that too. So much so that the running joke in our house, the joke that I have with my husband, is that he says I just rush out there and I take on these big projects without realizing completely what I'm getting myself into. And the joke that we have is he thinks he's going to come home from work one day and I'm going to have decided in the morning that we need a swimming pool and I'm going to have the pool dug by the time he gets home. So I hope he's not listening, but just go dig the pool. Like, just run out into the backyard and dig the pool, whatever the metaphor is for that, whatever the activity that the pool is the metaphor for, just go do it. And the last thing that I want to highlight is Jasmine brought up the importance of self-care and making sure that we take time for ourselves. And I cannot stress that enough. You know, we are busy, dynamic people. We've got a lot going on in our lives. And I think it's on each one of us to just unapologetically say what it is that we need to do in order to keep ourselves feeling and performing at our best. You know, there is, it's almost like there's an analogy between being a woman and being a parent and being a person in a corporate job or in your career and being an athlete. There's something to keeping yourself in good shape and taking care of yourself that allows you to perform at your best in all of those other areas. So it really is not selfish for you to take care of yourself so that you can show up for everyone else as your best self. I want to thank Jasmine so much for coming on. She and I have connected a number of times outside of this podcast, and she's just such a wonderful person. So I really encourage you to check out her book, check out her website, check out her podcast, Carpe Diem with Jasmine. I really think you would enjoy it. And if you are enjoying these podcasts, I would love it if you could pop over to iTunes to leave me a rating or a review so the little algorithm thingy can find me when people are searching for inspirational stuff for women. I've got it for them. I have got the inspirational women lined up, even more of them coming in the next weeks. I'm so excited for you to meet them. I'm so happy that you have stayed with me this long. I hope everybody has a wonderful week, and we will be back with another amazing woman in the coming weeks. Have an inspiring week.